1997 provided one of the most influential years in gaming history, mostly thanks to the power and the success of one groundbreaking RPG, Final Fantasy VII. Years after Final Fantasy VII's release came a groundswell of support and fandom for both the franchise and role-playing games in general. As time progressed, the characters of Final Fantasy VII found their way into other games and even different forms of media, including a full-length movie. One of those experiences happened to be a PlayStation Portable exclusive focusing on Zack Fair, the best friend and mentor to Cloud as seen in the original iteration, garnering praise and slight criticism for embracing a combat system more in line with Kingdom Hearts and eventually future installments of the Final Fantasy franchise than its namesake. Crisis Core left a lasting impression where gamers who didn't have the privilege of owning a PSP wanted to experience it for themselves. 15 years after Crisis Core's original release, a remake of Zack's adventure is now available for 8th and 9th generation gamers, with the promise of actively tying into the current Final Fantasy VII Remake timeline. And this Final Fantasy VII fanatic couldn't be more excited to return to Midgar. Originally released on the PSP as not only a piece of Final Fantasy on the go, but also set as a prequel to the story initially presented in regards to the officially 7th numbered entry in the Final Fantasy franchise, Crisis Core puts players in the shoes of Zack Fair, a Shinra soldier first class, introduced in the original Final Fantasy VII iteration as both Cloud's mentor when he was attempting to be a part of Shinra's highly dangerous militia, and Aerith's attention of affection. It was also during this time the minds behind Square Enix's RPG experiences saw the action-oriented nature of RPGs being the future of the genre, rather than the turn-based systems of the past, including Final Fantasy VII. Being a portable experience originally, the amount of content isn't rooted in a grandiose story or open-world presentation like its prequel-released sequel, but rather an extracurricular activity, specifically missions. At any save point, players can activate missions both finished and uncompleted, with some missions unattainable if the player doesn't search out a particular quest giver before Chapter 7 of the 10 associated with the main story. There are 300 missions that need to be overcome for 100% completion, with each of these short dungeon-based journeys having varying difficulties, including the max of 10 stars that rivals the narrative's final bosses, while rewarding the player with anything from high-end equipment to materia. Beyond chapter-based trophies and achievements, including a frustrating sniper section later in the story, are collectibles in the form of mail that, just like missions, can be missed if the player isn't careful or aware of the missable moments and items. And with no chapter select, the option of going back and picking up something missed is impossible without restarting the story or using a timely made save. After 25 hours, I finished the main story on hard difficulty to attain the trophy associated with it, while completing almost half of the missions, while New Game Plus carries over almost everything the player attains during their previous playthrough, including digital mind wave progress. Mission progress resets, meaning I will have to use my last save before the final bosses to finish up those missions and take on the game's secret boss as well. Something that will most likely take me another 20 or so hours alongside another 10 to get those collectible trophies I missed during my first playthrough. Seeing the future of RPGs moving toward a more active approach, the minds and developers behind the original version of Crisis Core took a page out of Vagrant Story and Kingdom Hearts' playbooks in regards to gameplay. Unlike the original version, players can freely and much more easily move Zack and the camera alongside the highly functional lock-on system when in combat around a fully three-dimensional map, while mixing melee slashes with his sword by hitting a controller button instead of issuing the attack command via the menu at the battle screen's lower right-hand corner, as it was in the original PSP version. Dodging and blocking, both using their own respective buttons to perform as well. Spending MP to use magic and ability points for those yellow-colored skill materia in regards to the latter, with this version foregoing the original's decision that AP would also be used to block and dodge. The same command menu position in the PSP entry is now strictly for using items that the player can scroll through. AP skills are a perfect combo ender. dishing out more damage and maybe even a critical strike if the player uses, say, Blizzard Blade at the conclusion of a 3-hit combo. Combo canceling is also a new feature, with players being able to stop Zax's attacks by hitting the guard button at any time. A new aspect of combat is the Buster Sword battle stance. In Chapter 6, Zax is gifted the weapon synonymous with Final Fantasy VII's imagery and logos. Similar to Cloud's Punisher mode in Final Fantasy VII Remake, the battle stance allows Zax to reduce the loss of HP while dishing out more damage than usual, both in terms of general melee and AP skills. Unfortunately, there are some significant drawbacks when using battle stance, including Zax becoming immobile while in position, battle stance being broken if he significantly hit more than 3 times before the player can act, and battle stance consuming AP. Also, unlike Punisher mode, there is no auto counter system attached to it, so if the player goes into battle stance right before being hit, Zax can't pull off a melee counter strike like Cloud. The slot machine implementation known as the Digital Mind Wave, or DMW, not only returns in Reunion, but is better presented with it no longer moving to the middle of the screen from the top left-hand corner, and pausing the action when the 3 numbers or faces line up to benefit Zax during a fight. The DMW begins to spin anytime Zax gets 10 special points or SP by defeating an enemy. Hitting a particular lucky number set will gift Zax a variety of options, including infinite MP and AP for a short period of time, the opportunity to call forth a summon like Phoenix or Tonberry, earning a limit break, or leveling up Zax with a lucky 777. Thankfully, the game is very generous with Zax's leveling. Zax's emotional state also plays a role in what buffs he may attain, with his emotions being connected to both current story moments and how well the player has done in previous battles. Come close to death in too many battles in a row, and Zax will more likely get Aerith's healing limit break rather than Sing's airstrike, for example. The DMW's random nature does hinder battles at times when it seems Zax is on the verge of a buff when luck doesn't fall in line. Thankfully, the developers made sure to help the player who came up short in a battle by giving them the options of either restarting the battle immediately, redo Zax's equipment loadout including his materia, or simply load up a different save for a grandiose restart. This is a welcome change, considering some of the bosses and tougher final enemies during missions have special attack meters that randomly come up during a fight that can be knocked down by increments of 25%. If the player is able to empty that boss's special meter, the attack is nullified, but if not, it will do damage in correlation with how much meter is left. At 50%, it will do only half of its original damage output. When it comes to equipment, one of Crisis Core's greatest feats is the ability to break the gameplay courtesy of material fusion. Players are given the opportunity to blend 2 materias, with the outcome usually dictated by the materia's level, and fusion items used to enhance certain stats like vitality and attack. In the hands of someone who has played the original iteration or simply look it up online, will discover materia fusion strategies that turn even some of the hardest battles into minor squabbles. A lot of the changes and refinements to the gameplay helps turn this remaster of a portable game into a bona fide remake, as the developers could have easily just stuck with redoing the character models. A majority of the characters outside of the street-level NPCs roaming around Midgar's various sectors look vastly better than their PSP counterparts, while the animations from the original version still hold up fairly well, even if at times it seems like the player is watching an anime. However, there was no updating the cutscenes without fixing some of the narrative flaws seen in the early chapters, including a lack of exposition in regards to some of the relationships between the Soldier First Class crew. The voice cast, mostly taken from Final Fantasy VII Reunion, don't help the odd dialogue moments once reserved for text boxes. This version is fully voiced compared to the PSP iteration, and some of the more contrived story beats that reach into the realm of melodrama before significant moments from the original Final Fantasy VII story come to the forefront, and brings this story together in magnificent fashion. Thanks to some beneficial combat changes rounding out a system that had all the makings of being something special, limited by the hardware it was released on in 2007, Crisis Core is mostly a joy to play. Though the story presentation and repetition connected to the optional missions haven't been touched, it causes those portions to feel like a relic from the not-so-distant past. Similar to other remasters and remakes of games from years ago, this experience is built for gamers who either loved the original and always felt the game could have benefited from some technical improvements, never had the chance to play it while always being intrigued, RPG players who enjoy more action-oriented combat over turn-based strategy, or big fans of the Final Fantasy VII series. While there is a lot to like about the combat, the story still has a level of silliness and pacing issues in the beginning chapters that is really helped by a strong final 3 or so hours. If you fall in one of those aforementioned categories as a player who has or hasn't played the original Crisis Core, there's no reason not to buy this version and feel like a true hero.
Brace yourself! Prove your honor to me. I got it.
Conflict resolved.
Soldier Second Class Zack, victorious again.